So should you use Azure Resource Manager templates or something like Terraform for your environment? And this is a very environment-specific question, and it's going to depend on what you're currently using. If you're already using ARM templates or Azure Resource Manager templates, then you can go ahead and continue using them. But the big difference is ARM templates are built for Azure. They deploy resources inside of Azure. Terraform uses the HashiCorp configuration language, and it can deploy across multiple clouds. It's kind of cloud agnostic. It uses a provider and resource model, whereas ARM templates only deploy Azure resources. So if you're trying to deploy across a portfolio of clouds or a portfolio of environments, even on-prem environments, Terraform would be a really good choice. Now, if you're already using ARM templates and you want to look at something like Terraform, that's totally cool and that's great. You can actually deploy ARM templates using Terraform. Terraform has a resource to deploy an ARM template. So say you've already got one and you're using it now, you can still use it and you can start transitioning into Terraform if need be.
I'm a system administrator, and DevOps, it seems kind of scary. How do I make that transition? You know, I thought about this for a long time, and I get asked this question a lot because I've been really lucky to get really immersed in that DevOps movement. And what DevOps really says, and it's more than just tools, and while Azure DevOps is an incredible product for you to use to do continuous integration and continuous delivery, DevOps itself is more than just that. DevOps is about continuous education, communication, and really growing so that your career continues to grow with you. So don't think of it as scary. Think of it as more than just pipelines, more than just new tools, more than just configuration management. DevOps is a way to help your entire business work smarter, help your team do a lot easier things when it comes to working together, and ultimately that collaboration will create a really, really great environment for you as that system administrator to grow into doing work in the DevOps world.
Hey, welcome back to AzureFunBytes. My name is Jay Gordon. Let's get into it. The Azure Cloud Shell provides you with an easy command line interface that is familiar to users who've done CLI-based management in the past. Getting into a Cloud Shell is as simple as going into your browser and selecting the icon from the portal, or you can just navigate to shell.azure.com. You'll have access to both Bash and PowerShell to allow you to script and execute commands that allow you to create, edit, modify, and destroy resources right from the Cloud Shell. You'll also have access to many common development and open source tools, such as Docker, NPM, and even the MySQL client. Also included is the Azure CLI. This is the key to making all of your changes from the Cloud Shell. The Azure Command Line interface is Microsoft's cross-platform command line experience for managing Azure resources. The Azure CLI is designed to be easy to learn and get started with, but it's powerful enough to be a great tool for building custom automation to use Azure resources.
I'm Stephen Morowski, one of the cloud advocates here at Microsoft Azure. Azure Cloud Shell helps you work faster and easier. Say you're on the go and you need to log into one of your Linux servers via SSH. Or maybe you need to edit a file and get it checked into a Git repository. Azure Cloud Shell can help you do either one of those from almost anywhere in the world via a web browser.
Make use of the light version of Visual Studio Code right in the Cloud Shell so you can edit your code or drop log snippets when troubleshooting. Write scripts to execute complex jobs using many of your favorite languages right in the shell. Popular programming languages and environments like PowerShell, Bash, Go, Node, Java, and Ruby. Accessing the Cloud Shell is just as simple as a click in the browser. So why don't you go ahead and check out more documentation, or use this link below and you'll get $200 free credit to use Azure. See you next time.
Hey everybody, it's Jay. So we've talked a lot about some higher end kind of issues in my past videos, but one of the things I'd like to talk to you about today is to simplify some things and talk to you about the different ways you can work with Azure. So
the fact is that there's so many ways that we can access and manipulate and create, remove, update, destroy, whatever we need to do on Azure. And there are tools that we can use alongside to make our experience really easier. So some of the ways we can interact with Azure obviously is the portal, where we can go in here, we can create groups, we can create databases, virtual machines, all the different types of things that we could do with Azure. But inside of here is the Cloud Shell. And I love the Cloud Shell because what the Cloud Shell gives you the ability to do is use an interactive bash shell or PowerShell and be able to do things you would need to do on a maybe local computer and use, say, some of the more common tools. And one of the most common tools that I've mentioned in some of my prior videos, and for you starters, you might really want to just know a little bit more about it, is Git. That's right, Git. So what is Git? It's open source distributed version control system designed to handle everything from very large projects with speed and efficiency. To put it easily, Git is a really great way to make sure that there's version control on your files and everything in when you're creating repositories. So when you create new code, what you can do is you can commit it to a repository and you'll always be able to save and go back. So what's great is you might have heard of some of the popular places people keep Git online. So there are Git repositories that you can get from a place like GitHub if you sign up for an account, and you can go and create repositories. You can save them and you can have branches with different versions of what you've worked on. You can merge your branches, you can have pull requests, you can invite other people to using it, and there's also Azure DevOps, fairly similar. But you might be asking, like, how do I actually start using Git? Well, I'm going to give you just a few easy steps to use the Azure Cloud Shell and just get started with Git pretty quickly. So what's great is Git is already in your Cloud Shell. So if you're not already there, just go to shell.azure.com after you've signed up for an account. And then you'll be here in the Cloud Shell. And what you'll see is that the Cloud Shell gives you tools like Git right here, and you don't actually need to go and install it on your local computer. You can, and what's great about that is that you can then take a repository you've created, say, in your Cloud Shell, maybe you've then put it onto Azure DevOps, and if you need to get it and work on it, say, on your local computer, you can just clone it. That's why Git works so well, because it's extremely portable. It allows different branches so different people can work on a similar project and then work on individual parts of those projects, and then have other people in my organization, if I'd like to, work together and collaborate on them. Same thing with GitHub. But what's ultimately possible is that you can do this just locally on the Cloud Shell if you just want to get started with Git. So really, the first part of working with Git is configuring yourself. So git config, you're going to see there's some options here. So what I'm going to do is what I like to normally do to kind of get started. So we'll config everything as we go along, but what I want to show you is the very, very first steps of creating a directory, initializing a repository, and then we're going to create a file, create a branch, and then modify it. Okay, so let's get started real easily. We're just going to create a directory, and so we'll create this directory and we'll call it jdemo. Okay, and the next step in there is we're going to just go into jdemo, ls-al. See, there's nothing there right now, and what we're going to do is type git init and then dot to reference this specific directory that we're in. So now it's initialized an empty Git repository. So what does that mean? Well, now there's a .git within that directory, and we don't need to work within it. So I'm just going to show you what's inside. A whole bunch of information that creates meta information about the changes you've made when the commits have happened, so that you're always able to rewind back to a change or switch between branches. So all this is embedded within here, and you don't necessarily need to manage this on your own. This is all handled by Git. Don't touch this stuff. leave it alone. Anything you need to do is done by using the Git binary. So the first thing we're going to do is create a file. And the easiest way to do that is we're just going to do echo, hey there. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to redirect that into a file, and we'll just call it test01. Okay? So ls minus there. There we go, test01. So where are we? Excuse me. So we are on a branch that has yet to be born. So we actually need to assume that we're going to make this our main branch, and then if we want to commit more, we can create new branches, and then eventually we can merge those branches if we'd like to. So let's take a look, and what we can now do is add this particular file to our repository by just doing git add dot. So that says everything within the directory, add into the repository. Then we do a git commit minus m to create a message. And what we'll say is first commit. And now it's going to tell me who I am. It needs me to tell me who I am because I haven't configured Git yet. So what we can do is just copy this and put our username or our user email. So in this case, it's user email, and it's jdestro@gmail.com. And next, we're going to config our username. So that's what my username I use for most stuff, and that is jgordon. So what I'll do is username, and actually, there you go, jgordon. Simple as that. So now I've configured who is going to be making these commits so that there's an actual record of who's doing what. So now I've added the first commit. So to the master branch, which has been created, we've got one file change, one insertion. And now we've committed this, and now it's a part of the branch, or the master branch. So now if we want to go and create a new branch, maybe that's going to modify that test01 file, we can do git checkout minus b, and that refers to branch. And so we're going to create a branch called branch01. So we've switched to this branch, and now we can go ahead and make changes to the file. So vi test01, because hey, within our Cloud Shell is vim. You have it right there. So let's go, hey there, new file, changes. And I'm going to save it. I know how to get out of vim, that old gag. And so what I've decided is I want this change to be on this branch, but I'm not ready to merge them yet. So let's git add, and we'll git commit minus m, and we'll say changes to file. Okay, so now if we actually go and git checkout master, and we go back to the master branch, and we look at test01, we see that the change that I made before isn't in this because it's only on the other branch. So let's say I want to continue making changes. I can eventually switch between those branches and then make more modifications to the file. And then when I'm ready, I can do a merge. Now, we're not going to cover merging right now. It's a bit much for getting started. But what we are going to do is show you how to clone a repository. So let's go to this application. So I have an app here that I've created. It's a real simple application, and I want to bring it locally so I can maybe make some changes. So what I can do is go to GitHub, and in most GitHub, to create an account, it's pretty simple. Go to their website. They're going to eventually ask you to create an SSH key. What you can do is come over here to the server, or I should say the Cloud Shell, and follow the instructions here. If you go to help and go to setup Git, you can follow this authenticating GitHub from Git, and I recommend going through the connecting over SSH. It will show you how to generate SSH keys, Very, very easy to get started doing. Just copy and paste this information right over here. I've already configured my SSH key, so what I'm going to do is I don't need to configure that. What I can do right here is clone it, and I'm going to clone it via SSH. So I just copy this repository right here, and now I can go over here to the Cloud Shell. And so what I'll do is I'll go back to my main directory, make dir demo, cd demo, nothing in here, so let's git clone. So now this is if you need to just start working with repositories that maybe you find some code online and you're not really ready to commit it to that branch or that project, but you just want to start looking at the code that you've downloaded. Go right in there, go to my directory that I've cloned, and if you see, just like we had a Git file, or I said a Git directory, and within there is a file in here called git ignore, and I'm going to show you that. A git ignore file is a list of common files that you just simply don't want to have committed to the repository when you're working locally on your computer or maybe somewhere else. So let's say I have some particular file logs that I don't want to have committed that get generated during tests, or if you're on a Mac and you have these DS store files that sometimes show up and you don't want them to get committed, you can do that. So that's the real benefit of using a git ignore file. So those are the real basics of starting to use the Cloud Shell alongside Git. Git will give you the ability, like I said, to make sure that there's a version control on all the code that you write or modify and then commit to projects like we could do right here on GitHub. So if you have any questions about getting started using Git, there's a ton of resources. I really recommend you look over at GitHub's resources, take a look at the Azure DevOps project, and also just check out the Git website, git-scm.com. And you can use that, like I said, you don't need to install on anything if you just sign up for an Azure account. Real simple to go ahead and start using Git because it's already installed for you. So if you have any other questions about it, you can leave it down underneath in the comments or find me on Twitter @JDestro.
Hey, my name is Jay Gordon. Welcome back to AzureFunBytes. This time we're going to talk about Visual Studio Code. Let's get into it.
Visual Studio Code, or VS Code, is a streamlined code editor with support for development and operations like debugging, task running, and version control. VS Code is free, available on Windows, Mac, and Linux. You can use VS Code to handle anything you want to write thanks to integrated programming languages support right out of the box. Popular languages like Python, C++, C#, JavaScript, Ruby, PHP, and more.
Hi, I'm Jason Han with the Azure Cloud Advocacy Team. Visual Studio Code provides a number of extensions that allow you to integrate your development process directly into Azure. You can create resources, interact with the Azure CLI, or even right-click deploy a web app. It's all there for you in Visual Studio Code.
Extensions allow you to install or even create your own plugins to extend the features of VS Code. Today we'll focus on Microsoft Azure extensions. There are large collections of extensions you can find in the VS Code marketplace that make it easy for you to build and host applications on Azure. I'd like to deploy a web app from VS Code to Azure App Service, so I'll install the Azure account and the Azure App Service extensions. Once I install my extension, I can go ahead and authenticate my session with Azure using my credentials and multi-factor device. Once that's complete, I can right-click on my app's root directory and select Deploy to Azure Web App. I'll configure the service plan, the web app, and then VS Code will deploy my web app and provide me details when it's completed. And just like that, my app is online.
For more information, documentation, and even to get $200 in free Azure credit, go ahead and click this link below. Once again, my name is Jay Gordon. You're watching AzureFunBytes, and I'll see you next time. My name is Jay Gordon. I'm a cloud advocate with Microsoft Azure. We just finished up Build 2020. I want to talk about my favorite new product that was released at Build, and that's static web apps for app service. You get the ability to create a static website like Hugo or something of the like, and what you can do is easily deploy it using GitHub Actions. You don't have to write any of the YAML to actually do the deploy. So what I'm going to do is show you how to deploy one of these static web apps for Azure. So let's get into it. One of the really cool things that came out of Microsoft Build 2020 were static web apps. And right now it's in preview, it's free. Let's talk a little bit about what we're going to do today. So we're going to show you how to deploy a Hugo app. Hugo is the world's fastest framework for building websites. It's a static site generator. It's fairly easy to install and configure. If you look at the docs at installation, installation is fairly available for almost every single major operating system. So if you go on install Hugo, if you do what I did, you used Homebrew. But there are binary installations, all the things you need. And if we look here in our terminal, you can see I've got some old stuff here. I'll clear it up. If you look here in my terminal, what you can see is I've got Hugo help. So I've already installed Hugo, and working with Hugo is really simple. Hugo init, Hugo creates stuff for you, creates a framework for you to go ahead and create your files in. And now if we look here, we've got, I've already kind of created this, and you can use this particular code. It's in a repo on GitHub. I'll have it in the links. So if you want a site like this, if you want to create your own, what you can do is you can go to the Hugo website. You'll follow the Configure Hugo site. Also, there's some documentation on how to deploy a Hugo site with static web apps on the Azure documentation. We'll take a look at that in the comments as well. So let's first talk about what we've got here. I mentioned to you that I've got a little website here. It's just a website about my dog. It's all static, and what we'll do is we'll look at it here on the GitHub side. So if we look in content blog, what we'll see is we've got markdown files. These markdown files are eventually rendered. Those are turned into HTML, and after you've turned it into HTML, you can then serve it as a static site. So you don't have to have any dynamic content or anything like that. You just serve it just like you would in an index.html file, right? So let's get into what we're going to do and how to get it deployed on Azure. Now the really great thing is that the GitHub Actions work that we're going to do, and I'll show you some previous runs I've had, it's all going to work for us automatically. So the first thing we're going to do is we'll go into Azure, we'll click Add. And we're going to create a resource group. So our resource group will be called, I'm going to name it after my pug, Rico the Pug. And I'm going to pick the region of US, and that's just where our metadata and our resource group will live. Create, we'll go to the resource group. Great. So now we are in a position to start creating resources. So what we're going to do is we're going to create our Hugo blog in Azure on a static web service. So let's take a look at what we've got here first. We've got this static site. We've got all these elements in here. We've got categories that get built, XML, all this basic stuff that's ready to go. We've got some images that I've created. And then once I'm ready to kind of make changes and build, so let's say I've gone ahead and let's go to Rico update here, which is one of the pages I've already created. What if I update this to say, see you all soon? Because Rico wants to see you. He's a cute little pug. So what we'll do is we'll save this file. Then I'm going to do this. I like doing my Git stuff in the terminal. So let's just clear this so you can see a little Git add, Git commit -m, new info about Rico. So I'm just going to put this in a public repo, but you could use a private repo. And it's just as effective. So git push. Okay. So we've gone ahead and we've updated our blog. Now let's go ahead and start deploying it. So I'm going to click add. I'm going to search the marketplace. I'm going to just type static web app preview. Now what's really cool is that this is
right now in preview, and it's free. So if you want to run a really low-end website, just do some updates, maybe you've got a project you want to update people on, it's super simple. So we're going to enter a name for our, like I said, we're going to pick our subscription. We're going to put this in our resource group, which is Rico the Pug. And then we're going to give our app a name, Rico the Pug. And so if that's free, it will create a fully qualified domain name for us. We'll pick where it's going to be hosted. I'll pick East US 2. The SKU is free. Like I said, it's free right now. So the next part we're going to do is to sign in with GitHub. So we'll click sign in with GitHub. I've already authenticated my GitHub account. If you haven't, it'll bring up a username and a password request. You'll do your 2FA, and then you'll set your GitHub account. So my account is JDestro. We're going to go to the organization, which is JDestro. Once we're finished with that, we're going to go to the repo. So the repository is Rico Info. So I'll select that, and then we'll pick the branch. Right now, we're going to build master. If we wanted to use an alternative branch, we could do that too. So now we're going to go to build, and we're going to talk about what we need to build. So there's the app location, we want to leave it in / the main directory. That's where we want it to be hosted. API location, there's no API. This is a static site. The app artifact location, where is everything going to be stored when it's public? In public. We don't want to specify a directory path. We just want to say that we're going to call it public. So that's where it's going to serve files from when it all goes live. So we'll click review and create. We can save and download an automation template for the next time we want to create another one. But now we just click create. So what's going on? Right now, we've just committed a new file. Let me show you what it was. So git pull. See that? Azure Static Apps created this little bit of YAML right here. Let's take a look at what it is now. So we'll refresh here. We'll go to GitHub. We'll see it created a workflows directory and then this static apps CI/CD. So what it's done here is it's actually created a GitHub Actions job for us without us actually having to configure anything. As you can see, it's got the build and deploy process in all the configured YAML, tells it what it's going to do, what to do after, and where to put the website. So what we can do is go to resource, and we can see right here, there's a workflow file and GitHub action runs. So let's click on GitHub action runs. And what we're going to do is see here in GitHub actions, where either you want to look at it from this file, or I should say direct website, or if you want to go back to your repository and just click actions here. Either way, you're going to see what recently happened. So let's go and see what happened when I went ahead and pushed that latest commit. When I added that YAML file into, or I should say Azure added this YAML file into .github Workflows, that is a trigger for GitHub Actions to start building what you've created in that file. So what we did was build and deploy a job, and we've got logging so we can watch what happens. So we set up the job, then we actually run our CI, we build our application or our static site. So you can see it grabs everything, which is an image, and starts it, tests it that it works, checks out the config, make sure everything works. It builds it, deploys it. As you can see, here's all the information about when it did the Hugo run, the pages that it generated, and then the copying. So let's go to complete job and take a look what we have. So we can go to the URL and it's ready to go. Our website is up that fast, that quickly. I didn't have to stop this video. I didn't have to do anything. We just went right through it. The blog post, an update on Rico. So Rico's happy and he loves you. That's great to hear. But what if we want to update what Rico's been doing lately? So we'll go to Rico Facts, and we'll say, we'll go to Rico Update. See you all soon. Oh, that didn't get rendered yet, so let's do that. So see you all soon. He loves you. So CI/CD is set up. So right now, all I have to do is save this file, After I save this file, all I should have to do is Hugo. It's rebuild. It rebuilds our pages. Then git add, git commit -m, and we'll give it a message and we'll say update on Rico. Git. Now I'm going to put this up so you can see what's going on and you'll completely get it. So let's watch this page. Git push. Okay? So every time a push to master happens, what happens over here? We start a new build. This is automatic. It will always happen. So what we'll do, we'll go to update on Rico. We see now our build and deploy job, our close request job happens. So it goes through the whole process once again of CI, packages it up, and then deploys it right to that Azure static site. So you can see it's already almost finished with our entire deployment. And it's so quick, it's so easy. And so this is one of the great things about Azure static sites, is that static web apps, is that you can just start building things very, very quickly, right now for free, and just really enjoy the simplicity of using this. So here we go. This is the last build. And yep, here's everything. We've got everything to go. We are ready now to continue using our website. We can customize it a little bit more. We can change the environments, add some functions. We can add a custom domain. So if I wanted to add, say, www.ricopug.info, what I can do is go here. I'm just going to open up a new tab. I've already got a host configured for that URL. So what I'll do is I'll go to the Rico info DNS record right here. And what I can do is update the CNAME. So I'll click the CNAME right here for www. We can go here, grab this value of the host name that's configured automatically by Azure. Let's go back here. Sorry about that. Let me refresh this real quick. Cool. So we'll go to www. We'll update the alias to our new alias. We'll save it. And then after just a few minutes of propagation, we'll be able to go to ricopug.info and use our fully hosted domain name with either this temporary or our full one. So let's look at it again one more time. We've got our workflow file right here in GitHub that does all the work. And Azure does the rest by doing a build and eventually serving the website. That was really easy. And that's one of the reasons why I love this new service. You can go ahead, deploy your new application, have a full continuous integration and continuous deployment pipeline configured right in GitHub Actions. You didn't have to write any YAML. It's really awesome. So if you want to try it out, get $200 worth of free Azure credit, take a look at different docs, or you want to just say hi, check out this link. I'll see you next time. My name's Jay Gordon. Hey, welcome back to AzureFunBytes. My name is Jay Gordon. Let's get into it.
You can launch servers into your Azure AD, add extensions for popular third-party software, and so much more with Azure. Let's get started creating a new Windows Data Center 2019 VM on Azure. I will first open up a Cloud Shell, then create a resource group where our VM will live. We're asking for Azure Resource Manager to provide us with the latest version of Windows 2019 Data Center Edition VM from the Azure Image Library. We can determine what images are currently available on Azure by running this command.
Hi, my name is Abel, Principal Cloud Advocate and DevOps Lead at Microsoft. Everybody is moving to the cloud, and Azure VMs is a fantastic way to start. If you already have an app running on VMs or even physical machines, lifting and shifting the entire infrastructure into VMs in Azure is a great start. You get massive benefits just by not having to host your own VMs.
Let's take a look at the command we'll invoke. Once I hit enter, this will tell Azure Resource Manager that I'd like to create a new VM within the resource group FunByte. The server will use Windows 2019 Data Center Edition along with the administrative username and password that we've provided. We'll also be able to specify we want RDP open until we lock down our security rules. After a few minutes, our new server will be provisioned along with the public IP. I should be able to just go ahead and RDP in and start viewing my new Windows VM.
And that's it. That's creating a Windows server on Azure. That's right, you've got a VM running the version of Windows you want in just a few minutes. For $200 in free credit, or to check out more documentation, check out this link. See you next time on Azure FunBytes.
Hey, it's Jay. Today we're going to work together and learn how to do some new interesting stuff. So I'm using Windows today. I haven't used Windows for operations and systems engineering, systems administration in years. And so I wanted to kind of learn how to do this as far as building a website, modifying it, and using CI/CD pipelines using Windows, because you can use just about any type of operating system, any platform, anything. It doesn't really matter. Azure makes it super easy using the portal, using all those other tools. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to go ahead and build something new today. So let me go ahead and change some of our source here. So I'm going to put me down there. I'm going to close me right here. And then let's go ahead and take a look at my desktop. Okay, so you see right here it says Azure Getting Started, Made Easy, Launch an App. So what we're going to do is use this DevOps Starter Kit. The easiest way to get to it, if we go here, we create a resource, and then we can type DevOps Starter. So what we're going to do with the DevOps Starter Kit is we're going to launch an app very easily. We're going to let the DevOps Starter Kit kind of draw our CI/CD requirements out. So it's going to create everything we need. So all we have to do is go here, go to DevOps Starter, click Create. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to deploy to a Windows virtual machine. So I've done a lot of things around application deployment with containers, but what we're going to do is something really simple. One, we're going to use this new web app. We're going to load it onto a virtual machine where our deployment is going to be. So the first thing we're going to do, like I said, we're going to go here to the DevOps Starter. I'm going to pick .NET, and then we're going to deploy it to a virtual machine, because you may have a need to deploy an application like a .NET app to a virtual machine, and you want to create CI/CD pipelines so that deployment can happen. So what we'll do here is go to Next. We're going to choose the language, the runtime that we'll work with, and we'll just use ASP.NET. We'll click Next. Service. So it'll ask me where I want to deploy it. So we have these three different options. A Windows web app, which will eventually containerize the application and deploy it to a fully hosted web service. A function app, a serverless type application, so we could run, say, an API or some sort of job on demand. And then there's a virtual machine, which is a full computer. So what we're going to do is, let's say we have an older app and we need a full computer. So we're going to do virtual machine. I'll click Next. And so now we're going to give the opportunity to create an Azure DevOps organization. So let's do this. I'm going to go to additional settings first, and I'm going to create a new Azure DevOps organization. I need to do this under mine, so we don't want to use one of these existing organizations. We want to create a new one. So we'll go here to Yes, and then we'll just name it ASP.NET Starter. Okay, simple. We'll pick where it's going to be started. Here we'll just use Central US, a VM. We'll give it a resource group. That's a group for our resources and where we're going to keep it. So we'll just call it ASP.NET RG VM. Just something simple. We can choose the username that we want to log in with. We can choose our operating system here. I'm going to use 2016 Data Center. We can choose application insights for metrics and other information, where that'll be stored. That's really important for GDPR. If you don't want to have data stored in the US and it's a European region requiring GDPR regulations, you'll want to make sure you take care of that decision first. So we'll click OK.
And so now we actually have to give things names. So we're going to give this a name, and we'll call it vm.net. Okay, so that's going to be what it actually names our project in Azure DevOps under this ASP.NET Starter organization. The subscription, that's how we're going to bill it to my subscription. The name of the virtual machine we're going to create, the location. Here's the size, so we can go right here. We can change the size of the VM. We'll use this default one, the D2S V3. We've got lots of different choices, but we're going to use this one for right now. So next, we're going to click Done. So let's talk about what's going to happen. So we are going to have created for us. We don't have to do any of the YAML. You don't have to sit and write pipelines. We don't have to even, as you see, log in Azure DevOps. What we've done is allow our tool within Azure to create a full CI/CD pipeline within the DevOps Starter Kit. So let's look at the deployment and we'll talk about what's going on. But always remember that if you want to replicate this deployment, you can use Azure Resource Manager templates. You can save this template, you can modify it. As you can see, we've got all of our information within here as far as the resources are concerned. We have our parameters. That's in a JSON file with our schema. Okay, looks like our DevOps starter project is done, so we can go to the resource. So let me explain what this is going to do. This isn't where the VM is. This is a resource group that's going to give you just like an outline of how everything is configured. So we have a repository called vm.net. It's going to pull from the master branch. And every time that happens, it's going to build using CI in Azure DevOps. And then it's going to do our build, and after it completes our build, it's going to drop everything via this continuous deployment release to our server. So let's step through everything, okay? So right here is vm.net. What is this? This is the repository where our code is held. And in this case, what's really great is the DevOps Starter Kit is going to give you this sample web application. And if we go into views, we go to home, we can see there's an index file. If I want to, I can make modifications here. All right. So what's really, really great about this, what's super awesome, is that we've got a full CI/CD pipeline. That means that anytime I make a change and commit something to master, it's going to kick off the trigger to then begin this process of build. So look, our build finished. Let's go to the build results. And right here, we see our build. The job was done. Let's see how everything worked. So the build process got kicked off when our CI process here found the trigger, and then it initialized the job. And so it downloaded all the required tasks like NuGet, VS Test, VS Build. These are all required so we can actually build our application. Then after that, it checks out the code from the repository. It gets NuGet to get all the required dependencies. It does a NuGet restore. Then it starts to build our code. So it uses .NET, starts building our application, tests any tests that we have. And we don't have any tests set up because we're just using our demo app. We'll start pushing our symbols. We'll copy the ARM templates to actually build the infrastructure. We'll create our artifact, and that's the build. It's stored in, say, a zip file. Then that zip file, or however it's packaged, is deployed right to our repository via Git. So it doesn't look like it did it via a zip, it did it via Git. And then after that, it finalized the job and then takes the drop or the archive that's created from this, and then it deploys it over here to dev. So it does essentially what it needs to do to make sure our build happened. And so let's go to our build, and what's next is this CD pipeline. So this CD pipeline, once our CI is configured, is kicked off. Here's just some information. And so we'll see right here, the deployment is going on, and we can go into in progress, and we can look at what's actually going on. So we downloaded that artifact, the drop after the CI was finished, and you can see everything is kept there.
It downloads all the information, the JSON, everything, the template that needs to actually be used. And so we'll look at our next task. And then so now it's actually creating the resources. So the virtual machine, the network, all the things that are required to actually build it. And so what we'll do is we'll go back over here. And we'll see we're over here and we're looking at this pipeline, but what we can actually do. And so I'm going to go to resource groups. And we'll see. I'm just going to pare down my subscriptions a little bit. So we'll see that there's a resource created right here. I believe this is it, the .NET VM. And so there's our DevOps starter kit. And then we created what I believe was called ASP.NET starter as our resource group. Nah, this is another one. Sorry. Let's see. .NET VM. Here it is. Sorry about that. And so here's actually where the virtual machine is being created. And so our deployments are still going on. Actually, I'm looking at the wrong one again. I'm so sorry. This is the one we created. I've done some demos before testing it. So what happened is we've got this resource group that gives all the information, or I should say stores all the resources that contain our application. So if you go here to vm.net, we can actually see the virtual machine that's created. We look here at continuous delivery. If we wanted to, we could set it up this way. However, what we've already done is set up everything via here. So now if we go, we'll see that all of our pipelines have finished. Our resources are still creating. It's almost done. But I want to show you the actual pipelines themselves. So let's go to pipelines. And we're going to go to the vm.net CI pipeline, which is what built our application today. So what we'll do is we can manage security, order a pipeline. But what we're going to do here is click on the pipeline that we've created. Now we can run it or we can edit it. So we're going to edit it just to take a look at what's in here. So here are all those jobs that we saw being run. It's all done right here. All these are created for you, and that's each part of the deployment and build process. So we can see here are all the things that are done. We copy an ARM template, then we eventually publish our artifacts. So that's just our CI pipeline. Let's go to our release pipeline. And so that's still running because it's probably still creating the virtual machine and getting everything deployed. But we can go ahead and click here, release 1. And so we'll do kind of the same thing. We're going to go here and we're going to click edit pipeline. And we can look at the release pipeline as well. So drop is when we get that artifact from our CI process right there. Then we go to our actual stages of what happens when we do the deployment. So right here, we create our Azure resources. We've got all of our information that was populated by the DevOps starter kit, and then the deployment. So it's going to deploy everything to a deployment group. What is a deployment group? It's a group to deploy to. Pretty simple, huh? And then once it begins that, it's going to create a website in IIS, and then it's going to deploy to that IIS website. And then we have the ability to add variables, like here our virtual machine's password, retention, to retain and release, different options, and even the history of our releases. Okay, so let's go back to pipelines. Everything's finished running there. We'll go to releases. Still running. No big deal. Almost done. But let's talk about what's going to happen when it finishes, okay? And then so we're ready to go there. So what we're going to do, we're going to go back to the DevOps starter kit for this deployment. Cool. So let's take a look at it right here, this application endpoint. So what this actually did was it took care of actually creating a fully qualified domain name with HTTP access, port 80. And if we go ahead and click this, we can see that IIS is up. So IIS is online, but it hasn't finished provisioning everything for our server. If we go here to the pipeline jobs CI, we want to look at the release pipelines. Let me close that window. We'll look at the release, and we can tell that we're still doing what it is we need. So it's just deploying
the template for our Windows server and what it's going to actually do in that process, aside from just install or do our deployment. But it's going to create all the resources we need to actually do the .NET deploy for our apps. So it's going to create Windows, set up all the networking, ensure the NAT's created. Okay, we're almost done. After that, it's going to then take all of our compiled application and drop that application with a fully configured ASP.NET and IIS website. So let's take a look at where we're going right here. Okay, so this is almost done. I'm going to pause, and when we come back, I'll show you the pipeline completed, and once that's completed, we'll look at the website, then we'll make a change, okay? And then we'll talk a little bit more about deployment groups. So we'll be right back. Okay, so our agent job here and our finalized job deployment group here is, so what's going to happen here? So our release finished, and now it's at the final point of our deployment. And so what it's actually showing me is it's deploying to the deployment group. Let's take a look here. Excuse me. Okay, so what's going on now is it's going to our deployment group. A deployment group is actually the servers, the physical servers that we're going to deploy to. And so now it's grabbing the artifact drop, the place our code is stored after it's been built. And now it's creating the website. It's deploying the application to IIS. Cool. And then once this is finished, it'll finalize the job and tell us it's completed. So now remember, we went here, and if I refresh this, we should get our demo site. Let's just double check. Could just take a second. Load. While that's doing that, let's take a look at what the deployment group looks like. So if we go here to the deployment group, what we can see is our actual server that we've deployed to with an agent installed. And so what we could do is click this, and we see the actual nodes we've deployed to. We can add tags. We can see that our deploy is finished. Let me see if I need to refresh again. Deploy might still be going on. Let's also double check. So let's go here, just open this again. The other thing that we can do, there it is. So it's finished. There it is. So this is our finished website. Like I said, here it is from here before. It triggered this whole release, and then it was able to do the release to the deployment group. If we wanted to, and this is a really great thing we can do, we can go and we can create additional deployment groups. We can add more servers to this deployment group. What you can do is go here to the project settings. You can create an agent pool, add additional agents. One of the things that's really useful is we can use a Azure Virtual Machine scale set. I think you might have seen me do some videos on it before, but you can set up then an auto-scaling scale set of servers. Take this scale set of servers, go ahead and add it to a deploy group, and then you can go ahead and build, delete everything. So we're going to make a change. So let's look at our home page right here. Everything's set up, great. Learn more. Now, I could go ahead and upload my own application. I don't have one to do right now, so let's just show you really quickly making a change. So I'm here in the repository. I could clone this in Git, but I'm going to do it right here in the browser. What I'm going to do is just Azure DevOps project has been successfully set up. I'm going to add comma. Oops. Great work, J. Okay, commit. So now we've committed it. We're going to commit right to master. You normally would want to create your own individual branch and then go through your regular pull request process. But anyway, we've committed this. And so what is that going to do? Well, let's go back to the DevOps starter kit. And if I just refresh this,
we can see that my new updated build triggered my new updated change triggered a new build. So now what we're going to see in here is it's going to go through this build process. It's going to restart everything. The only thing that it won't need to do is recreate our OS, our VM, configure all that again. That's already built. So all it really needs to do is go through the process of building everything, publishing everything, deploying everything. And then what we'll see is our change has been made. So it's going through the whole build process. And once it's finished, our change will be done. So I'm going to let this finish the build process. And then when it's done, I'll show you our change and then we'll wrap up. Sound good? Okay, so we finished our build, and now we're here in our release pipeline, and you can see we are at the deployment. We can see the template validation's been completed. It's going to make sure that if we need new Azure resources, they're created, and then eventually it will add our change right here. And so we can see our diff of the changes we made. We can see that it created a new release, and that release was finalized, and now it's going to finally deploy to our build, or I should say our deployment group. And if we take a look here, we've got release 2. It will finalize our deployment. So when this is done, it should just say succeeded. We'll see it says 1 in process. There it is. It's finished. So this should be all done. So now we're going to go back to the virtual machine and just refresh. Take a second like it did before, and then because it's just got to restart the IIS site. And if we were doing this, say with a scale set, we would have a bunch of nodes, and see right here, our website is updated with our CI/CD changes. So that's really it. I am going to make myself big now. Ooh, actually I like this. So
you can only set thumbs up or down for a song playing on your custom stations.
Thank you, Alexa. I gotta turn that off next time. Anyhow, there's plenty to learn. There's so much more to do. Let me make myself a little bigger. Woohoo! There we are. So there's so much more to learn and do. If you like to, check out the links below, and let me know what you think. I think that this is a great way for people who want to take that DevOps trip to get a handle of it. It's really just a point and click to really get started using CI/CD. So let me know if you've got any questions, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Hey, welcome back to AzureFunBytes. My name is Jay Gordon. Today we're going to talk containers. Let's get into it.
You may have worked with virtual machines to deliver your application, but do you really need to manage all that underlying OS and dependencies? By using containers, you can create environments for your applications that are isolated from the actual computer or node that's running them. There's no hypervisor like Hyper-V or VMware. Containers can be run anywhere, on your local computer, in a data center, or even in the cloud, like Azure. Docker is a tool for building images for your containers, allowing you to package and share them in registries. Registries act like repositories, just like we keep our code in. Registries act similarly to our code repositories, giving us a place to track our changes and then eventually deploy from.
I'm Eric St. Martin, one of Microsoft's cloud advocates. When you get past the hype, containers are just highly configured applications that allow you to control how much of a given system resource that the application can consume, as well as what system resources that the application has access to. The real power of adopting containers is how they lend themselves to reproducible builds, simplified packaging and distribution, and the resiliency guarantees that we get from using things like container orchestration.
Utilize services for on-demand containers like Azure Container Instances. Deploy complex distributed applications via Azure Kubernetes Service, or even build web and API-based applications with web app services and get fully hosted web apps with SSL auto-scaling and all the other features integrating your container with the rest of Azure.
You can see even more documentation in the link below. Go ahead, click that now, get up to $200 in free Azure credit. Once again, I'm Jay Gordon, and I'll see you next time on Azure Fun Bites.
Hey, and welcome to this in-depth tutorial on how we can get started using Ubuntu Apache Test Page. We're going to do it from an ARM template. We're going to do it from the CLI. And what we're going to try to make sure you learn is how you can use these ARM templates to start making changes to the parameters so that you don't have to log into the portal. You can do everything right from your command line, and you can even start committing these things to a repository in somewhere like Git, GitHub, or Azure DevOps, so that you're able to keep these changes that you might make to an ARM template and effectively your Azure infrastructure. So let's go over step by step. Now, the first thing you'll want to do is to clone this repository to get started. Obviously, you need an Azure account to use Azure Cloud Shell. I'm going to show you that I have gone ahead already and cloned it in Azure Quick Start Templates. Cool. And so you've got all these different templates that we can work with, but specifically the one that we're going to want to use today is the Ubuntu Apache Test Page. So we'll cd into Ubuntu Apache Test Page. Cool. And we'll look at, here we are with all the files that are associated with it. You could see it also in here. So let's go ahead and just do a basic kind of deploy. So the first thing we'll do is create a resource group, and that's as simple as az group create, and then we'll specify the location and the name. We're going to call it a JDemo Apache. Simple enough. Mute it so you don't get any more of my little sounds. Cool, so now I have my new created resource group. That means that everything that I create will be within this resource group as long as I specify I want it to be created within there.